This is Money Talk Radio, and I'm Ellis Martin. Today we're going to take a deep dive into a publicly traded NASDAQ company developing innovative therapies to improve the quality of life of patients with progressive kidney disease as well as diabetes. The company is XORTX Therapeutics, a late-stage clinical pharmaceutical company. XORTX trades on the NASDAQ as XRTX and on the TSX Venture Exchange also as XRTX. We'll speak with CEO Dr. Alan Davidoff. We urge you to pay attention to this dissertation, noting the revolutionary therapy being developed and the potential investment opportunity there within. Dr. Davidoff, Alan, welcome back to the program. It's great to visit with you today.
My pleasure, and thank you for the opportunity to chat again and speak with your audience.
I received an email from, I'm guessing, one of your investors, one of your many investors, about a recent acquisition between Vertex and Alpine, a $4.9 billion deal, expanding work in kidney and autoimmune disease. And as an investor, in addition to being a journalist, these sorts of things fascinate me because where's the next opportunity in the space? And I'm in for the long term, not necessarily the short term. And when you see something like this, you want to take an even harder, closer look at XORTX. What are your thoughts?
You're right. This is a stunning acquisition. And for reference, it's the Vertex acquisition of Alpine Immune Sciences. I think when you really narrow down or put the microscope on the deal, it's a very good deal for the sector. It's a real illustration of the value of rare disease programs. It's certainly an illustration that if you have a product that is expandable to a number of areas, it makes sense for large pharma to just outright acquire a company. And I think there are a lot of parallels in the Vertex deal, a lot of similarities between Alpine Immune Sciences and many orphan programs, including the one that XORTX is developing. I think it's easy to say this is an orphan program. Their commercial assessment is that they should exceed net sales of $1 billion per year. They're poised to start phase 3 trials. They have a pipeline in a product type approach. We're very similar. All of those categories also are banners for XORTX Therapeutics. We're also aiming to slow the progression of kidney disease and hopefully prevent individuals' disease from progressing to end-stage renal disease where the loss of kidney leads to a need for dialysis or for transplantation. But there are some differences as well that are notable. The key differences are, while Alpine's therapy is protein-based and ours is small molecule-based, the effect really is quite similar. There are very few therapeutic options for individuals with IgA nephropathy, which is the disease that Alpine Immune Sciences is focused on. And that's the case for autosomal dominant polycystic kidney disease as well, where XORTX is focused on that area. But there is a broad ability to apply these types of therapies to other kidney diseases. And just to take a step back or define a little bit, in the chronic kidney disease space, there are several categories of origination. Most individuals with chronic kidney disease, almost half, get their chronic kidney disease because of diabetes. Others have genetic issues in Alport syndrome, in polycystic kidney disease that lead to chronic kidney disease. Many of those individuals with genetic backgrounds or familial backgrounds in the disease get diagnosed early. But many individuals with chronic kidney disease due to diabetes or IgA nephropathy usually get diagnosed when their kidney disease is much more advanced. So I think there are some differences and some similarities. The similarities certainly outweigh the differences for Alpine Immune Sciences compared to XORTX Therapeutics. I think there is a large unmet need, and both companies are really focused on addressing that large unmet medical need.
Since you're similar in many ways to Alpine, with the exception of the fact that you're extremely involved in early stage development of kidney disease or the markers for that and diabetes. At what point do you become a potential, and I use this word across the board agnostically in my job, so forgive it if it offends you in any way. At what stage do you become a potential takeout candidate, hypothetically?
Once you have phase 1 and phase 2 clinical trial data, you are a candidate. Many large pharmas are looking to fill their pipeline and backfill their pipeline when launches don't go well, or there's the expiration of patent coverage or the end of a product life for product, which really equates to cash flow.
Would you wait? Would you hold on as long as possible? Because I noticed that Alpine was taken out. Well, they closed just a few days ago at $37. You're nowhere near that. I think you're at about $3 as of this broadcast. Would you hold on as long as you can? There's no hurry for you to move on to that potential acquisition or merger that may come in the future, right?
That's a good point. Our preference is to find sources of funding, non-dilutive in the case of a partnership, or dilutive in terms of equity raises to support the clinical trials, the late-stage clinical trials that we're planning. In our case, in XORTX's case, we're focusing on a single clinical trial that's short, one-year treatment period that could lead to accelerated approval for this program. That accelerated approval, if one projects out the timeline, could put us in a revenue-generating situation by the end of 2027. In drug development terms, that's a short period of time. By comparison, the Alpine Equity Sciences acquisition occurred as they're tooling up for a phase 3 clinical trial. I believe they would also be eligible for accelerated approval in IgA nephropathy. So again, a parallel. Often, if you have a large partner approach you about your program, you have some say in the matter, but it's very compelling to take a twofold premium or more if that's available. But the fundamental principle here is there are two companies that need to come to an agreement that is equitable and fair. And when that happens, can be as early as phase 1 clinical data. Sometimes it's as late as phase 3 clinical data after the top line results have been delivered.
I'm very curious about the effects of COVID across the board. And I've been asking people in the medical field, PhDs and what have you that deal in the space, what have you noticed? So I'm going to pose that question to you. During the last 4 years, have we seen an uptick in kidney disease, in diabetes that you can either directly or indirectly relate to COVID? And what is XORTX doing to address this?
So I think one goes back and looks epidemiological data since really the publications in early 2021. There is a clear emergence of diabetes associated with COVID. There seems to be a several-fold increase in the incidence of diabetes following a COVID infection. We know about long COVID symptoms and that about 20% of individuals who are infected with COVID have some lingering symptoms associated with that COVID infection that can go on for 6 months to several years. And we're only several years out from COVID, so we don't really know the duration of those accompanying symptoms that would fall under the long COVID category. Historically, 30 to 40% of individuals who have diabetes, type 2 diabetes, wind up with chronic kidney disease. It is anticipated that the individuals who are hospitalized who have substantial acute kidney injury will be more susceptible to chronic kidney disease in the future and perhaps an accelerated form of chronic kidney disease. Those individuals who have resulting diabetes from their COVID infection may very well have a worse outcome, an accelerated form of chronic kidney disease well. And so for XORTX, we look at several factors that have emerged from the historical COVID data. And we've reported in a partnership with Mount Sinai Hospital Group in New York that there is, for individuals who are hospitalized, an increased hyperuricemia, so high uric acid concentration. Many of those individuals have worse acute kidney injury, acute heart injury, when we've seen many individuals with COVID infection wind up with arrhythmias and other cardiovascular issues that extend out for 4 months in terms of recovery. But perhaps the most interesting thing that's emerging is a much higher rate of sepsis. Sepsis for hospitalized individuals is one of the leading killers. There is a linkage between higher incidence of sepsis and COVID infection. We also have seen the emergence in the last 18 months or so of the identification of genes that lead to higher expression of xanthine oxidase. And as a company, we're very focused on the health consequences of overexpression or overactivity of xanthine oxidase because we're developing the class of drugs that are xanthine oxidase inhibitors. The alleles that have been identified suggest a higher propensity to develop diabetes and diabetic kidney disease, but more recently there are 3 new genes that have been identified that seem to make individuals more susceptible to sepsis. So if we look at the number of individuals, and I think off the top of my head, I believe there have been over 200 million COVID infections in the United States to date. It is an interesting question to ask, are those individuals who are expressing those alleles, the higher concentrations of xanthine oxidase, more susceptible to developing the diabetes that we're seeing emerge with COVID, or higher sepsis rates? And so there's new pioneering work that ties very closely to the patents we've written, but also the opportunity to help individuals with respiratory disease, so COVID, influenza, etc. Many of these respiratory diseases are resulting in hospitalization of individuals, between a few 100,000 individuals per year and almost 1 million individuals per year. So there is an opportunity there that's largely unexplored. With our class of drugs, we think we can identify a subgroup that needs specific therapeutic intervention with xanthine oxidase inhibitors to help them fight and recover from those COVID infections.
How aggressive are you in exploring and exploiting that technology?
Our aggression is limited by our funds and staff and otherwise. As you point out, we are moving things forward. Our primary focus as a company is the autosomal dominant polycystic kidney disease program. We're dedicating perhaps 5 to 7% of our focus on the COVID program and expanding that. But at the present time, we think the greatest value creating opportunity is to advance the polycystic kidney disease program through its late stage registration trial and get to what we believe is high probability of a partnership or to marketing this commercial product ourselves.
What can we look forward to during the next 6 months, Alan?
We're actively working as a company to advance our clinical trial protocol. It's in the hands of our clinical advisory board and team right now. Close to finalized. We anticipate submitting that to the FDA, to moving ahead with naming a clinical research organization that will help support us in that trial, and starting the recruitment of our first patient in that accelerated approval registration trial that could bring us to the partnership and to the marketing approval by the US FDA in the 2027 year.
Alan, it's great to catch up with you. Let's chat again very soon. Thank you for joining us today on the program.
Thank you for the invitation, and my pleasure. I look forward to speaking again in the future.
I've been speaking with Dr. Alan Davidoff, CEO of XORTX Therapeutics, trading on the NASDAQ and the TSX Venture Exchange as XRTX. Go to the company's website, XORTX.com. That's XORTX.com. When production of this drug therapy is approved by the FDA, the company again estimates $1 billion a year in revenue, and that's their conservative estimate. They also claim to be years ahead of any possible competitors in the space. XORTX is currently trading over $3 US and $4 Canadian. Alliance Global Partners has issued a price target of $14 per share, and Singular Research has issued a 12-month target price of $9 per share. XORTX is a paid sponsor of Money Talk Radio. Therefore, we are biased. Do your own due diligence and invest at your own risk. Again, visit XORTX.com. I'm Ellis Martin, and this is Money Talk Radio.